Hello everyone, welcome to Module 2. In this week, we are going to actually skip Chapter 2 because Chapter 2 is about ethics and you will have an entire course about ethics, so I'm not going to cover that chapter. So we are going to jump right to Chapter 3. In Chapter 3, we are going to talk about governance and strategic planning for security. Some of the things that you will learn in this chapter, you will basically learn to identify the role of planning in an organization. Also, you will be able to explain the strategic organization planning for information security. You are also going to understand the benefits and the outcome of information security governance and how such a program can become implemented. Also, another thing that you will learn in this chapter, you will learn about the principal components of information security system implementation planning in the organizational planning scheme. As we have discussed in Chapter 1, we have discussed the information security management in terms of general management. But we said that there are some part of the project management and general management that applies to information security. So let's look at the role of planning in information security. So basically, it's difficult to overstate how essential planning is. Normally, in an organization, you have the Chief Information Security Officer and other information security managers that they can actually generate a response to an immediate threat. So they also have to utilize those resources that they have put those resources in their plan. And basically the Chief Information Officers creates the strategic plan of the information security program. So that, which is, as we talked about it in the first chapter, the strategic planning deals with long-term planning. So they should be able to allocate resources toward that long-term information security program. Sometimes an organization could spend a lot of time and money and resources without getting the return on investment that they are looking for. So there needs to be a balance between the amount of time the organization is spending on planning and the benefits that they are going to get from that. So let's look at planning. What does it involve? Planning usually involves a lot of interrelated groups and organizational processes. So there are actually three communities of interest that are involved in the planning. First, they may be internal or external to the company, and they can include employees, management, stakeholders, and other outside stakeholders. Other factors that can affect planning are also physical, political, and legal environment, competitive environment, and as well as technological environment. So in the planning, basically, you need to be able to manage the resources in the organization. So planning helps with the direction of the organization's future. So without specific and detailed planning, the companies would attempt to meet their objective independently with each unit, which can cause a risk. So if you need to have some sort of a detailed planning and strategic planning in order to kind of minimize the risk. The next thing we are going to actually look at the precursors to planning. In order to implement effective planning, normally the organization leader began from previously developed position that explicitly state the organizational ethical, entrepreneurial, and philosophical perspectives. The precursor document that needs to be developed in order to support the organization planning consists of mission statement, vision statement, and as well as value statement. There were a lot of ethical problems with the organization recently. Maybe you have read in the news about WorldCom, Enron, and Fannie Mae and HP. They all had a lack of that ethical perspectives into the planning. So that's why that is very important. We need to think about it. And that's why that chapter in ethics is very important for the managers and people who are actually into the planning to understand that part. So there needs to be a standard that needs to be developed and implemented in order to regulate the company's, some of the standards and also the legal requirements. So that's why that part is important in the planning. Also, as we talked about the entrepreneurship, we need to think about it in terms of, how the company is doing the business with other companies. And also we need to focus on the philosophical perspectives of what the company would like to actually achieve. So let's look at these three documents that are supporting the precursor of planning: mission, vision, and value statement. So the mission statement explicitly declares the business of the organization and its intended areas of operation. So basically, the mission statement should be concise. It has to reflect both internal and external operations, and it should be robust enough to remain valid for a period about between 4 to 6 years. So here is the example of a mission statement. Random Widget Works design and manufactures quality widget and associated equipments and supplies for use in modern business environment. So basically, to put it in a simple way, the mission statement should explain what the organization does and for whom it does it. You can actually look up a mission statement of maybe the University of South Florida, or other mission statements and all of the companies like Nike, Microsoft, everywhere they have a mission statement in place. So basically, a lot of organizations also require each division or major department to have a mission statement, like information security to have its own mission statement. So as I mentioned, it has to be something concise. It has to basically express what that division do and for whom it does it. So it's very important for the information security department to be able to identify their mission statement as well. As you can see here, a lot of companies like National Archives and other organizations, they have the mission, vision, and value statement. So these are the three kind of statements that's needed for the organization. Now let's look at the value statement. What is a value statement? Next to the vision statement is the value statement. In the value statement, we are trying to establish a form of principles and qualities in a value statement, such as benchmark for measuring behavior against the published values. And so in that way, you can actually measure the performance of the organization against the standards. So this is an example of the value statement. Random Widget Works value commitment, honesty, integrity, and social responsibility amongst its employee, and is committed to provide its services in harmony with its corporate, social, legal, and natural environment. So again, this is very bold statement, and the quality, we are mentioning the quality here, and also we are mentioning the how we are performing and what are our measurements. So the vision statement, it's expressed where the organization wants to go in the future. while the mission statement describes how it wants to get there. So the mission statement is how to get there. The vision is basically where you want it to be. So we are, in order to have a good strategic plan, we need to take in consideration about the mission, vision, and value. So the vision statement should also be ambitious, as they meant to express the aspiration of the organization. So where you want to go in the future, what you see yourself in the future. So a random widget works will be the preferred manufacturer of choice for every business's widget equipment needs, with an RWW widget in every machine they use. So again, you can think about a vision of your company, what you see your future. You want to serve maybe, like for example, for Microsoft, they want to maybe serve everybody, or they want to serve certain people, or they want to, like, be known worldwide, or they want everybody to know about them in the future, and they want to have maybe millions of users or 10 millions of users in the future. So basically it's where your company wants to go. It's not about how it wants to get there. Mission statement focuses on that, but vision statement is about where you see yourself in the future. The next thing that we are going to discuss is about the strategic planning, which actually it relates to tactical planning, operational planning, as we have mentioned in the first chapter. So let's look at the strategic planning, and we are going to look at strategic planning with SMART objectives as well. So the strategic planning is the process of defining and specifying the long-term strategy to be taken by the company, and allocation and acquisition of the resources that we need in order to pursue that effort, in order for us to get there. A strategic plan guides organization effort, and it focuses on the resources in order to get to a specific goal. So basically, the strategic plan also defines goals that are happening in an ever-changing environment. So the strategy, in a strategic planning, it's kind of a top-down approach, which you need to have it from the point of view of the leaders of the organization, and they can actually push it down to the other levels. So this is a top-down in terms of the organizational hierarchy. Strategic planning is a top-down approach, so it goes CEO, kind of CIO, VP, and so on. And in terms of corporate strategy, we need to focus both on financial part of the strategy, the IT part of the strategy, the operational part of the strategy. Which part of the IT, we need to also focus on the information security strategy, which leads to information security tactical planning, and as well as the lower level, which is the operational planning. So the strategy plan basically translated into a lower level plan, tactical planning, and as well as operational planning. So once the organization overall strategic plan is translated into a strategy's goal for each division or operation, the next step is to translate those strategies into a specific tasks that are measurable, achievable, and time-bound objectives, which we call them sometimes SMART objectives. So that means they are specific, like what must be done. They are measurable. How do we know it's done? They are achievable. Is it possible to do it? And they are relevant. Are they reasonable? And of course, time-bound. That can it be done in a specific amount of time? So as we said, as part of the strategic planning, we need to focus on the information technology part as well as information security. So as all organizational units will be using the information, not just the IT-based information, the information security group must understand, and support the overall strategic plan for all the business units. Sometimes the role of the security group of people could be in a conflict with the IT departments. So the IT roles is the efficient and effective delivery of information and resources. But the role of the information security is to protect those information and assets of the whole entire organization. So after the company develop a general strategy, it can create an overall strategic plan by extending that general strategy into a specific strategic plan for each division. So each level of each division, it can be translated into objectives, those SMART objectives that I just mentioned earlier. So those objectives need to be specific objectives, and it can go down to the lower level. So once the overall strategic plan is translated into a strategic goal for each major division, the next step is to translate those strategy into tasks, which, as I mentioned, they need to be specific, measurable, achievable, and time-bounded. So this is the overall strategic plan, and we can divide it into a smaller or to the other smaller plan for each division. So that's why we have a Division A strategic plan, Division B strategic plan, and then under a strategic plan, it can go to the lower level tactical plan as well as operational plan. So let's see, now that we know what is a strategic plan, now let's see what is a tactical plan. Tactical plan could cover a shorter time span than a strategic plan. It addresses objective for a smaller part of an organization, and it should break down appropriate strategic objective into a series of objectives. Operational plan is also in a shorter time frame as well. So, and also we are dealing with even a smaller part of the organization, and we need to seek more immediate objectives. So something like communication requirements, weekly meetings, summaries, progress report are all part of the operational planning. The first priority of the Chief Information Security Officer and the whole information security management team is to have a strategic plan. So a lot of organizations, they might have their own format of designing the strategic plan, and they might have different ways of distributing that strategic plan. But you need to make sure that information security plan is also part of that strategic plan. So let's look at some of the components that's going to be on that strategic plan. One of the components would be executive summary. The other one, which we just talked about, mission, vision, and value statements. Then also organizational history and profile would be on that strategic plan. Strategic issues and core values will be there. Corporate goals and objectives will be there. Major business units like different various product service levels will be there. And other, you can put other appendices which will be other stuff as applicable to the organization, such as market analysis, if you're dealing with budget, internal, external surveys, research and development projections, and other stuff. Now let's look at some of the tips for planning. Now let's look at Brian Ward's tip for planning. First, articulate a comprehensive and meaningful vision statement that shares the organization intent. So basically, you want to have that vision statement for other people to see that. Also, second one, you want to bring a sense of logical analysis of the objectives and what has been accomplished so far. You want to have some of the tools to track outcome against intention, to measure effects against prior actions. Also, you want to work from an overarching plan that has been developed with the input of the key stakeholders. You also want to have a transparency in your planning, and when you make changes, you want them to be understandable with other stakeholders. You want to also make sure that in the planning phase, everybody is involved and that they all work towards the common objectives. Another tip is basically you must remember that maybe results are not going to be achieved as quickly as it is intended. So you need to give it a little bit more time. Also, you need to develop consistent and repeatable methods of planning that can be adopted as the organizational culture. Also, you need to make sure that you explain what has been done to the stakeholders, and they should understand the intention of this process. Also, you need to use a process that fits the organization culture. Another tip could be that you need to make the process as engaging as possible so that the participants are not going to be overwhelmed with a lot of materials. These tips are actually being developed by a consulting firm, and it is good for the managers to look at these tips before they start planning. That's it for this part of the video. My next video will cover information security governance. Take care for now.